This video will show you how to replace the rear brake caliper on a Cadillac CTS. This will be located behind your rear wheel. Let's get into it. Let's get ready to remove our front wheel. To do that, the first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've done that, you're going to remove all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts so we can get the wheel off of here. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, we have a clear view of our rear brakes. We can see the caliper and we can see our rear brake flex hose. Now right on the caliper is where we can see our bleeder screw. Typically you'll have some sort of bleeder screw cover. You're going to want to remove that. Sometimes you can take it off by hand. Other times you might have to pry it off, possibly with a small screwdriver of some sort. Now continuing on, I have a collection receptacle underneath my caliper bleeder screw. We're going to be opening this. Typically you'll see a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. What we're going to have to do once it's open is make our way inside of the passenger compartment. We're going to press the brake pedal all the way down to the floor and hold it there with something such as a pry bar up against the seat and the brake pedal. While pressing it down, more fluid will come out of here, but once it's down to the floor and staying there, you'll find that fluid stops coming out of the braking system, and that's exactly what we need to see. After that, we can close our bleeder screw again. 11mm for my bleeder screw. Okay, the brake pedal's pressed all the way to the floor. Let's close our bleeder screw. Now after closing our bleeder screw, let's disconnect our flex hose from the caliper. Looking along the backside here, you can see that we have an 11mm headed banjo bolt. We're going to start removing this. Keep in mind, there could still be fluid inside of the brake flex hose and inside of the caliper. We still have our collection receptacle under this area. 11mm for the banjo bolt, as I mentioned. Continuing on, we need to make sure we remove the banjo bolt and both gaskets from our brake flex hose. Now my inboard gasket is stuck on my banjo bolt, so I'm just going to use some pliers. I'll hold on to that while I unscrew the banjo bolt from it. Commonly, these will just slide out of place. There's one of our gaskets. We'll set that aside for recycling. Go ahead and remove the banjo bolt from our flex hose. With that out of place, let's just make sure we clean and inspect our brake flex hose. For this, I'm just using a clean rag. I don't want to use any type of detergent which might make its way inside of my braking system. We'll just double check, make sure it's a smooth surface on both sides. This looks good. Now we can focus on removing the caliper itself. As we continue on, just keep in mind there's going to be fluid inside of the caliper. If you have a protective plug, you can insert that now. You can use pretty much anything for this. Now I do have a protective cover. I've also seen people use bleeder screw covers. Just go ahead and put it in there as necessary. That's going to prevent the fluid making its way out. Let's continue on with our 2 pieces of 18mm headed hardware. You're going to find that you have one long bolt up along the top area here, and then you're going to find you have a shorter bolt down here. I'm going to fully remove my first mounting bolt. Just give it a quick inspection, but I like to start it back in a couple threads while I continue on to the next mounting bolt. While holding onto the caliper, we can finish removing that first mounting bolt that we started back in a couple threads. We'll remove the caliper and we're going to set it aside. We'll bring it to the bench. We have our caliper on the bench. I have it upside down. We're going to start removing our brake pads. Some good news about this is you don't have to disassemble the caliper from the bracket to remove the pads. We just have to press them out of position. So with that said, I'm pressing from the outside and I'm pressing them towards the center. Then after that, I can lift it up and out of position. As you remove each one of the brake pads, give it a thorough inspection. If it looks like it's damaged or worn at an angle, it's a good idea to replace it. Now this brake pad does look good. One more quick note about the brake pads is during the installation process, assuming you are intending on reusing them, the inboard pad will go on the inboard side on the brand new caliper. Same thing for the outboard side. These look good. There it is, friend. And now we'll set that aside for recycling. Let's prepare our brand new caliper for installation. Before we can install it, we're going to disassemble it, we're going to clean everything, and we're going to apply some high temperature lubricant to certain areas. So with that said, we're going to separate the caliper from the bracket. Looking in between the two, we can see that we do have a slider pin. We're going to have to hold onto the slider pin. On my application, I'm using an 18mm wrench and a 17mm for my mounting bolt. Remove the caliper from the bracket. We're going to set this aside for now. We will be lubricating this. Let's focus on the bracket first. Typically, I like to remove each one of my two slider pins. We're going to wipe them down and remove any assembly lubricant that might be on them. Just a quick inspection, you shouldn't find anything wrong, but we're going to apply high temperature lubricant along the entire smooth shafted area, all the way up into the groove we can see next to the flanged area on the slider pin itself. Now once you have that lubricated, go ahead and slide it back into position. We're rotating it as we continue on working in that lubricant. As we start pressing this in, typically you're going to find that air gets trapped and it forces the slider pin out. We don't want that to happen, so I'm going to use a small pick. Extremely careful not to cause any damage to my boot. I'm just making a small air gap. That allows the air to make its way out. The slider pin goes in. I give it another couple spins here, working in that lubricant. I'll just go ahead and tug on it. I want to make sure the boot is properly secured in place. This is perfect. Repeat the process for the next. Now as you look at the caliper bracket along each side, you're going to find that you have spots for caliper bracket tins. Before we install our brand new caliper bracket tins, we're applying high temperature lubricant. You don't need very much. This is going to help with vibration dampening and noise reduction. It also helps prevent rust buildup. Now as far as installing the tins, we want to make sure we have them in the proper orientation. We have a couple locking tabs. Those would be facing inward towards the bracket. Line it up, press it in, double check, make sure it's secured. It shouldn't rattle around in any way. Just go ahead and do the same on the other side of the bracket. You can see our tabs. Nice. The bracket looks good. Let's continue on to the caliper. Now, as you remember, I had mentioned that we're going to apply high temperature lubricant. The areas that we're applying the high temperature lubricant is along the metal portion of the piston here, very center. And then along the back side of each of these two ears, essentially only in the areas that touch up against the brake pads. This is going to help with vibration dampening and noise reduction. Okay, let's get this over to the vehicle. So we're starting with the caliper bracket. We're bringing it into position. Now, as you remember during the removal process of the hardware, the longer of the two bolts holding this in place is for the upper mounting port. The shorter bolt is for the lower mounting port. Go ahead and start them each in. Now, once you have them started in, go ahead and snug them up and then torque them to 88 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure that caliper bracket's secured. It should not move around in any way. Let's continue on to our brake pads. Let's start with our inboard pad. This is going to go in the same placement as where we had removed it. We're just lining it up with the bracket and we'll roll it into place. Give it a wiggle. You should not have to use a hammer to drive this in. It should move around. If it does not, you need to clean your brake pads. This looks good, so I'll continue on to the outboard pad. Same process. Perfect. Now we can install the rest of our caliper. We're going to take the caliper and we're sliding it over our brake pads and our slider pins. As we slide this into position, we'll continue on with our two caliper slider bolts. For those bolts, you want to start them in, snug them up, torque them to 44 foot-pounds. Along the back side of the caliper, where the flex hose should be, you might find you have a protective plug. Go ahead and remove that. We'll set it aside for disposal. Now let's prepare to install the flex hose to the caliper. We have our pinch bolt and a brand new gasket. Slide it down on there. Now let's start bringing the flex hose over towards being in position here. We'll take our banjo bolt, we're going to slide it through our port, install a gasket on the opposite side. Now we have a gasket on each side of the flex hose. Let's get this flex hose in position and start in the banjo bolt. Now I'll bottom it out and torque it to 37 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure the flex hose is properly secured to the caliper itself. Now let's remove our bleeder screw cover. Now the next thing we have to do, we're going to pause in this area. We're making our way back to the passenger compartment. We're going to remove the pry bar holding our brake pedal in place and remove our master cylinder cover. Just go ahead and rest it on top. After completing that, we're back at the caliper. We're going to complete a gravity bleed. So with that said, we have a collection receptacle under the area. We're going to use our wrench. We'll turn this counterclockwise. Once it's loose enough, we're going to wait until we see a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. Let's give that a second. Okay, so I have a steady trickle of fluid making its way out. No more air bubbles. I'll go ahead and close this off. Let's clean any mess in this area. Now at this point, you want to make your way back inside that passenger compartment. You're going to pump up the brake pedal till it feels firm. Assuming it does feel firm and the brake pedal does not sink in any way, you've removed all the air from in the system and you can continue on by making sure there's no mess, reinstall the bleeder screw cover, and reinstall your rear wheel. If for some reason the brake pedal does feel squishy, more than likely there's air trapped inside the braking system, in which case you want to continue on with a manual brake bleed. When I do those, I bleed all brakes at the same time. Let's install our bleeder screw cover. Nice. We have our clean .3, .4 brake fluid here. We'll top it off. We'll reinstall the cover. Now one last quick inspection in this area, we can prepare to install our rear wheel. We'll get the wheel in place, start on all 5 of our 19mm lug nuts, we'll bottom them out, get the wheel back on the ground, and we'll be torquing each of them to 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Now I have the wheel back on the ground. Let's go ahead and torque these lug nuts to that 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Now since brake fluid is corrosive to your vehicle's paint, let's put a protective barrier in between the master cylinder and the paint on our vehicle. The next thing we have to do is clean around the top of the master cylinder here. We want to make sure that there's no debris that might make its way inside of the braking system. After that, remove your cap. A quick inspection of the cap. If it looks like the seal's damaged, you're going to want to replace that cap and or the seal. After that, we're going to remove as much fluid from inside of the master cylinder as possible and replace it with clean .3 brake fluid. You can also use .4 as necessary. To do this, you can use a small fluid extractor. Remove as much fluid as possible. Just be careful not to get it on your paint. Once you've removed as much fluid as possible, we have our clean .3, .4 brake fluid here. We'll top it off. We'll reinstall the cover. Now at this point, to start bleeding the brakes, we're going to have to make our way behind each one of the wheels. We're starting at the passenger side rear. Now we're starting our brake bleeding process at the passenger side rear. After I've completed this, we're going to the driver's side front. After completing bleeding 2 brakes, you need to stop at the master cylinder and top it off with some clean .3 or .4 brake fluid. Now I have a helper inside the passenger compartment. They're going to pump up the brake pedal for me. Of course I have a collection receptacle and my 11mm wrench back here for my bleeder screw. Just get my wrench on there. Okay, go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. Now we can see fluid making its way up and through this hose. We need to continue this process till we see only clean brake fluid making its way out with no air bubbles. Okay, you can release, thank you. At this point on my application, I saw that I had only clean brake fluid making its way out with no air bubbles. That's exactly what I need to see. Of course, on your application, you'd want to repeat this process as many times as necessary till you've found the same. Once you've completed this caliper, just make sure you clean up any mess. If you had a bleeder screw cover, reinstall that, and we'll move along to the driver's side front. Now let's remove our bleeder screw cover from the bleeder screw. I like to fully remove it. We'll set that aside. I've turned the wheel so we can have a better look at the bleeder screw here. Now I'm going to be using a 10mm for my bleeder screw. I have the person inside the passenger compartment. They're preparing to pump up that brake pedal for me, just as we did before on the other caliper. So of course I need my collection receptacle, 10mm wrench. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please. As you can tell, we do have a considerable amount of air coming from this particular brake, so we're going to continue on this process. As for your application, if it looks like it's just clean brake fluid with no air, you should be good to go. Just clean up any mess. Let's continue on. Go ahead and pump, please. I'll just remove my collection receptacle. Make sure that that's nice and tight. And clean any mess. Now I do have a bleeder screw cover, so I'll install that. Now that I've finished bleeding 2 of my brake calipers, we need to make our way to the master cylinder. We're going to top it off to confirm that we do not draw any air inside of our braking system. Once we've topped off that master cylinder, we're going to the driver's side rear, we're going to bleed that caliper, and then I'm going to go to the passenger side front to bleed that caliper. Afterward, I'll be meeting you at that master cylinder for a final top off. All brakes have been bled. Let's remove that cover, top off the brake fluid one last time. Make sure that's nice and tight. We'll clean any mess in this area and we can remove our protective pad.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.